Hey horror fans, let me ask you something. Do you think you've seen it all when it comes to 80s horror? You know, the slashers, the haunted houses, the endless parade of mass maniacs? Well, think again. Today we're diving headfirst into the murky, blood-soaked depths of truly bizarre horror flicks from the 1980s. These are the films that made even hardcore fans tilt their heads and mutter, "What the hell did I just watch?" Some of these gems flew under the radar, and others gained cult followings for their sheer audacity. But all of them left permanent scars in our collective GenX psyche. Welcome to GenX Horror. We celebrate the obscure, the unsettling, and the unforgettable. I'm Steve, your guide through this mess, and a proud member of Generation X. That means I lived through the video rental craze, the late-night cable marathons, and the glorious era of practical effects. I'm not here to gatekeep. I'm here to reminisce and maybe introduce you to something strange that slipped past your radar. And in today's countdown, we're looking at 5 horror films from the 80s that stand out for all the wrong or the right reasons. We're going to be looking at a killer in scuba gear terrorizing Amsterdam's canals, a carnival geek with a thirst for blood, a slasher disco hybrid that feels like a chaotic drunk nightmare, an infamous Spanish-American splatterfest, and a Canadian creature feature that asks, what if bugs were the real Armageddon? So buckle up, horror fans. These aren't your typical Friday the 13th clones. These are the obscure horror films that made you question reality, sanity, and even maybe your taste in horror. And if you're still here after that rundown, then this video was definitely made for you. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and let's take this strange trip together. Let's dig in. All right, we're going to start off with a good one. Let's kick things off with Amsterdamned, a film that makes you wonder, why didn't Jason Voorhees ever even think of scuba gear? This was released in 1988 along with Die Hard and Beetlejuice, although they are all wildly unrelated. It's a Dutch slasher that gave us a killer lurking in the canals of Amsterdam, picking off unsuspecting victims from beneath the murky water. The premise alone sets it apart from most urban horror flicks that stick to dark alleys or abandoned buildings, but here the threat comes from below the city itself. The film is a glorious mix of gallows-style murder mystery and action thriller, complete with high-speed boat chases that feel like James Bond meets Friday the 13th. One of the wildest aspects is that the underwater scenes were actually filmed in Rotterdam to keep the cast and crew safe from the filthy, polluted canal. That being said, a ship was sunk in the canal to fill some scenes and still remains there today. Director Dick Maas delivered some impressive stunts, especially for a horror film. In a decade obsessed with masked killers, Amsterdamned gave us a wild slasher complete with scuba fins. The cultural backdrop of late 80s Europe, a time of political tension and urban unease, adds an extra layer of dread. If we were to look for meaning, we would infer that the killer feels symbolic of hidden dangers beneath the surface of modern society. But let's not look for meaning. With an undisclosed budget and an IMDb rating of 6.6 out of 10, critics at the time were divided to say the least. Some loved the style and pace, and others thought it was too slick for its own damn good. But horror fans who stumbled upon it in VHS rental stores knew they found something special. Today, Amsterdam enjoys cult status, which honestly is our favorite status at GenX Horror. It's celebrated for its inventive kills and its super unique setting. Have you seen Amsterdam? Do you think it deserves more love, or is it just a Euro trash oddity? Let me know in the comments, and you'll be jazzed to know Amsterdamned 2 began filming in September of 2024, set to release this December 2025. Gang, Luther the Geek. Just the title makes you wince a little, right? This one was released in 1989, and this film introduced us to Luther, a sideshow geek, or those guys who used to bite heads off of chickens. Luther graduates from biting poultry to actually biting people. If that image doesn't haunt your dreams tonight, nothing will. Luther is portrayed with animalistic intensity by Edward Terry, who gives us a villain as weird as he is terrifying. Terry was actually 5'7", about 160 pounds, so camera angles were key in his imposing overall look. What makes this film an outlier? I guess I would say it honestly strips horror of any supernatural or masked slasher trappings and just gives us a human monster in Luther. The late 80s were all about body horror, but Luther the Geek took that literally and with teeth. Set against the backdrop of decaying rural America, the film taps into fears of societal collapse, outsider violence, and the loss of morality. The budget was super low, but the atmosphere is thick with grime and dread. Critically, with a really bad production budget and an IMDb rating of 5.2 out of 10, this film was largely ignored or just trashed. But in underground horror circles, it became infamous. The unflinching violence and disturbing premise have kept it alive in the hearts of those who like their horror weird and raw. And fun fact, the chicken biting scenes, those were real chickens. Peter would have a meltdown today. Hey gang, imagine Flashdance but with, like, blood, buckets of blood. That's Slashdance, 1989's chaotic attempt to mash up slasher horror with dance flick glitz. It's a murder mystery set in a dance academy where leotards and leg warmers can't save you from a mass killer. And yes, the killer's weapon of choice is a knife, of course, but also the sheer absurdity of the choreography is a bit of a killer as well. The film reflects the 80s obsession with both slasher films and dance movies. It's like someone watched Fame and Halloween back to back and said, you know what, screw it, let's do both. The acting is a little wooden, the dancing is, it's passable, and the horror it's weirdly charming. I didn't mind it. While the exact budget couldn't be found by me, this was a low-budget independent film that doesn't even appear on IMDb's radar. On Letterboxd, it pulled in a 2.4 out of 5, with my favorite review by user Jamie Lee Curtis 1. This was effing awful, but I was too hungover to stand up and turn it off. That's fair. Slashdance taps into fears of urban decay and crime in the big city. The killer's identity and motive are tied to themes of betrayal and corruption that mirror anxieties about fame and exploitation. Critics hated it. Audiences were mostly confused, but Slashdance lives on as a camp classic, perfect for late-night group watches.
While we were out here fumbling with that music, the lousy bastard was in there.
If Pieces taught us anything, it's that you don't have to go to Texas for a chainsaw massacre. This 1982 Spanish-American production is pure sleaze and gore, offering up a killer assembling a woman from various body parts. That's a beautiful plot. The rest of the plot, honestly, who cares? The kills were legendary. Pieces is infamous for its over-the-top violence, nonsensical dialogue, and some of the most outrageous red herrings in slasher history. This was made at a time when censorship battles were raging. Pieces proudly flaunted its excesses. The film taps into early 80s fear of moral decay and the influence of media violence of the time. On a side note, with a nod towards the over-the-top violence, it's said that the Chainsaw Girls scene was so terrifying that the actress literally peed her pants. The scared reaction was kept in the final cut. Of course it was. In the scene, you can't really tell anything's happening. Pieces was put together with a budget of $300,000 and scoring an IMDb rating of 6 out of 10. It was critically reviled but embraced by gorehounds who wanted to see how far a slasher could go. Today, Pieces is celebrated for its audacity, with fans quoting its most ridiculous lines at conventions. And let's be honest, if you were a Gen X kid who stumbled on this at the video store, it felt like finding forbidden treasure. What's your favorite Pieces kill? And do you think it's so bad it's good? Or is it just so bad that it's bad?
It's Friday night. It's always like this.
Now we're landing at Blue Monkey, released in 1987, and it brings us Canadian horror at its most bug-infested. A giant mutant insect terrorizes a hospital, and yes, it's as cheesy as it sounds. The plot mixes medical panic with creature feature tropes, giving us an Alien knockoff on a shoestring budget for sure. The title itself is a misnomer because there's no friggin' monkey. The original title was changed last minute, presumably to make it sound cooler, but that's not the case. The creature effects were practical and gloriously gross either way, and the film taps into 80s fears of viral outbreaks and biohazards of the time. The original title actually was Green Monkey. However, the title was changed due to fears it would be aligned with the HIV fears of the time and their connection to African green monkeys. Blue Monkey might be the heavy hitter on this list budget-wise at $3 million Canadian, but no IMDb ratings and an average of 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd, which means enjoyable but with some flaws. But who isn't? Critics didn't know what to do with Blue Monkey. Creature feature fans embraced its charm, though. It's the kind of movie that played on late night TV and scared kids for life. Let me know if you guys have seen this one. Did you also spend years wondering why it was even called Blue Monkey? Or were you aware this was part of a 3-picture deal including Death Weekend and Nightstick? All filmed in Toronto to take advantage of generous tax credits. Let me know in the comments what you think. And more or less, we just went through 5 of the strangest, most offbeat and obscure horror flicks to crawl out of the 80s. And these movies didn't just push the envelope, they freaking shredded it. They set it on fire and they danced on the ashes. Whether it was a scuba slasher stalking the canals of Amsterdam, or a chicken-biting carnival freak, a dance academy death spree, or a chainsaw-fueled gore fest. Maybe even a hospital overrun by mutant bugs. Either way, each of these films carved out a weird little corner of horror history. They didn't fit the mold of the big franchises, and they weren't trying to be the next Halloween or Friday the 13th, but they were doing their own bizarre thing, and for that, they've earned a place in the hearts of horror fans who like their scares with a side of, what the hell did I just watch? What do these films tell us about the 80s? That it was a time of creative freedom. Sure, this is also a time when horror filmmakers weren't afraid to get weird, get wild, and downright gross. We had societal fears of violence, disease, urban decay, moral collapse, and these movies mirrored all of that in their own twisted ways. Now, gang, it's your turn. Which of these films have you guys seen? Which ones scared you? Which ones are you adding to your much-watched list first? I want to hear all about it in the comments. And if you stuck around for this whole trip through the horror oddities of the 80s, you're exactly the kind of fan we love here at GenX Horror. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, join our little tribe of misfits, and let's keep the conversation going. And keep celebrating the weirdest corners of horror history. And above all, my friends, stay cool.